Have been giving out your book for years. I found, that sexy beast John Mayer. You know who that singer is? You know who that guy is?
John Mayer?
Mayer, whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah, that guy.
Handsome bastard. I was reading his Twitter, and he said a long time ago something about if you're really into, for creative types, is a great book called The War of Art. And then somebody else brought it up too. So I said, all right, let me check out this book and see what the fuck is going on. And it's so good, I bought a stack of them, and I kept it in my office. And when podcast guests would come over, I would go, come here, you lazy bitch, take this and go write. Go get something done, man. Get something done. Make it happen. And the inspiration of that book, it really works, man. Your book, like, it inspires me to get more shit done. Like, you have unwittingly, or wittingly, knowingly or unknowingly, you've like set an avalanche of creativity loose with your book.
Well, like I say, I brought you a half a dozen of these, Joe, so you can give them out to deserving, worthy recipients.
Yeah, I was one of those recipients from the early days.
Yeah, I gave Aubrey one.
Pre-On-It days.
Yeah, it was before On-It I gave Aubrey one.
A coincidence? Yeah. I don't know, maybe.
How long ago was that?
That was about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gave it to every comedian I know that doesn't write new jokes. Everyone that I know.
I bought it for my family for Christmas after you gave it to me last Christmas.
Well, you know what? It's applicable even like to non-artists. Yeah. I think there's a lot of lessons in that about what you talk about. The term resistance is a great way of describing it because it sort of names this fog that a lot of people have gone through, this weird thing that people have where sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll get online and then I'll say, well, what do I have to do today? I got to work out eventually. So from between now and when I work out, what should I do? Should I go watch TV? I know the remote is right there. And I know I really should get something done. I should just sit in my fucking office, close the door and start writing. But there's this weird thing that happens where all these other options come up and it's just so easy to just fuck off.
Let me ask you, Joe, because I don't really know about how comedians work. What is the thing that resistance stops you from doing? Writing jokes? Sitting down and writing jokes?
I would say writing material is the big one. Because it doesn't stop you from performing. Performing is really fun. You know, performing as a stand-up is something that we all look forward to. And it's a great exchange with the audience. This is a great time. So that's not something that anybody resists, but they do resist the writing. The solitary sitting by yourself with your thoughts, you know, the going over the ideas and trying to make them work and trying to restructure stuff to make it quicker or have more impact. You know, sometimes you go over a bit and you'll practice it on stage and you'll try to work it out on stage and you'll eventually get there. But really what you need to do is do the real work. Sit by yourself in front of a computer or a notepad, whatever you prefer, and actually write.
You know, it's interesting to me as just an audience member, because when you watch a comic that's really rolling, you figure they're just winging it. It's just coming out of them, you know, on the moment. But it's not true, is it? I mean, it's really hard work behind the scenes doing it.
There's actually both. There's definitely a lot of hard work behind the scenes, but there's also a lot of winging it. And the when you get good at winging it, it sort of comes from already having put in the work. And also having your mind free. If your mind is troubled, like that's another thing that's I found as I matured as a man, especially over the last like 10, 15 years, I realized the less clutter I have in my life, the better my mind works. Like it's a very valuable thing to keep your mind free of bullshit. So whether it's people or things you do that you don't like that you do or habits that you can't break, if you can get rid of those, your whole thing will work better. Like your mind will actually function better. It'll function without the regret of not being able to take care of whatever it is, whether it's a gambling issue or...
I think I've heard you describe, too, when you're in the zone and doing your best comedy, it's like the comedy goes through you.
Yes.
You know, you're just the passenger, and that's very much how you describe the muse in many of your books.
Yeah, that's a very important...
Stepping outside of getting out of the way, basically.
Yeah, that's a very important thing that you brought up in that book, and you said it in sort of a matter-of-fact way about what's this ethereal, sort of whimsical topic, the topic of a muse, like... But my best stuff, I have no idea where it came from. Everything that I've ever written, every time I've ever been on stage, I've been at my best, I'm like a passenger. It's like the muse takes you over when you're actually on stage. But there's that thing that you talked about in your book. It's the muse. And the muse exists on stage. The muse exists in front of your keyboard or notepad or whatever. The muse is it's some real shit, whatever it is.
Well, I'm from the school of it being, of trying to demystify it, you know, and because it is as everyday as where do you get an idea from? You know, when you're in the shower, you're driving on the freeway, where does it come from? And the point is, you know, to just get out of the way and let those things come.
Yeah.
And not forget them when they do come.
Well, what was interesting about the way you wrote about it as well is it was very easily digestible to people, because there's some people that talk about the muse and I just want to smack them. I just want to throw them off cliffs. Just shut up. Like, you're killing me with your nonsense talk. There's people that, obviously I'm joking, but there's people that go so far into the whimsical that it becomes this self-indulgent artistic expression dance. You know, it's like this, you know, their whole thing about the muse. She comes to me in the night. I leave the window open. Shall she grace me with her presence? In front of my keyboard, I await her arrival. Shut the fuck up. You know, Jesus Christ. But what you were being honest about is, I believe, a psychological or a mental state that you're in when creativity, whatever that is, works at its best. And by putting it in your no-nonsense terms and putting it in this really, like, very honest term, like the way you or honest description, the way you describe it is, that's what it is. Like, he nailed it. And I think that's what John Mayer, that's how you say it, Mayer? Mm-hmm. That's what John Mayer saw.
I'm
and
all of a sudden
other
a John
people
Mayer
saw.
expert.
Well, you, like him, are dreamy, so you might as well be.
Oh, shucks, Joe.
So, you know, whatever it is that creative people, when they read your book, they go, that's it. This guy nailed it.
For me, as you were talking about the muse and getting really ethereal, for me, one thing that you kind of drove home here is that the muse can be that higher part of ourself that we're just tapping into. And for me, that's been one of the key things in my life, is finding the ways to tap into that, you know. And I have a bunch of tricks and tools like, you know, crazy psychedelic medicine in the jungles of South America, things like that help me get there. But really, the muse can be, you know, finding that highest part of yourself, that part of yourself that's tapped into everything else around you, and that kind of quantum soup, as you call it, the magic, the source of the universe itself. And I thought that was a really kind of cool way to draw that in.
Well, maybe we'll get Joe to read that, and they'll still
I'm sure he will.
Yeah, I would love to. The idea of getting out of your own way, that's a big one. How'd you figure that out?
I mean, probably the same way you did. You know, I mean, I think it's anybody that's trying to do anything in art or, you know, filmmaking, painting, whatever it is, you find, or sports or golf particularly, you find that the tendency is to try too hard, right? You want it so bad. You don't want to screw up. You want to get it right. You want to, you know, not embarrass yourself.
Right.
And so you wind up trying so hard that nothing comes, you know? And finally, like over time, I'm sure this is the same for everybody, you kind of say to yourself, man, I just have to lighten up a little bit, because when good things happen is when I'm not trying so hard. And in many ways, I think that's the hardest thing of all. I mean, Aubrey, what you're saying about being in the jungle, you know, psychedelic jungle, what that's really all about is not trying. It's like the hardest thing in the world is to say, somebody says to you, relax, right? Or be yourself. Just be yourself, Joe. You know, I mean, and yet I think as we become more professional and better at what we're doing, when somebody says to you, be yourself, you can, you know, you're not burdened by these false selves and these things that you think you ought to be, or what you ought to say, or how you ought to look, or what you ought to be. You've kind of gotten rid of those, you know, over time, deliberately, very deliberately. And I certainly have, you know, I mean, I've very deliberately tried, you know, when I feel myself going that way, to pull back and let go. And I think in many ways, that's what any artist does as they become a professional at what they do. They learn to kind of get out of their own way. And it's the hardest thing of all, I think. And the people, we talk about resistance, or the way people screw themselves up, right? That's how they screw themselves up, is they're getting in their own way, right? They're listening to their own bullshit, they're believing it, and they're blocked from whatever they're trying to do.